Ba 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 ba. Hello, I just want to talk about Star Wars now, because no one else is doing that. It's gonna be a very ranty video, mainly for my own benefit. I want to get a few points out, mainly talking about Episode 9, Star Wars The Rise of the Skywalker. And if anyone has any answers to these questions that I'm gonna bring up, please do let me know. Because there might have been things in the movie that I've missed, mainly due to awkward pacing and just blatantly boring parts. So I might have just missed how these things actually connect and work out. But I will add this caveat. If there's an explanation for whatever happens in this movie, there has to be an explanation in the movie. We can't have an explanation in the extended universe, or I want there to be an explanation in the source material for the movie, not somewhere else. Now, this is going to be spoilers. This is going to be spoilers for basically all of Star Wars ever. Every Star War, I'm going to spoil. It's going to be spoiler for episode 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and The Mandalorian. So I like Star Wars. I guess I'll go up at the end. I like Star Wars. I'll go up at the end because it's a question mark more so than it's a statement now. I like Star Wars as a premise. I like Star Wars as a concept. I love the design. I love the world. I love the design of things, of the crafts and the technology in Star Wars is really cool. I like the general sort of aesthetic that they have going on with the ships and with the technology, the robots. The lightsabers are nicely designed. I like the look of things. And even in this movie, episode 9, things were very well crafted. And I want to make sure to point out that this is not a slight at anyone's craft. Any of the shooting, cinematography, lighting, special effects, visually, the movie was very, very well put together. There was a lot of weird editing, but in terms of acting and in terms of just visual spectacle, it's a good show. I mainly have a lot of questions about the logistics, so if you're not interested in hearing me question Star Wars, feel free to skip this one. Rewind a bit. The prequels. Okay, we know the prequels. Annoying kid grows up to become emo teenager who's in love with Natalie Portman. He becomes more and more emo because he's in love and he doesn't like sand, but he's not allowed to be in love, and I guess he's allowed to dislike sand, but that's not enough for him. So he knocks out Natalie Portman, dukes it out with Obi-Wan Kenobi, but Obi-Wan has the high ground. So Anakin loses all of his limbs and left to die, he becomes Darth Vader. The OT. So the original trilogy. I'm gonna assume that most people are familiar with the general story, but just as a recap, Princess Leia is on a rebel cruiser. She puts blueprints to the Death Star into an R2-D2 droid unit. The R2 unit is hauled out of there, and Darth Vader takes them captive. Luke finds R2 and C-3PO on a scrap sale, sees the hologram of Princess Leia calling for help from Obi-Wan Kenobi. Luke, using some sleuthing skills of unimaginable proportions, figures out that Obi-Wan Kenobi just might be related to Ben Kenobi. Changing your first name is probably the most genius way of hiding. Ben Kenobi turns out to be Obi-Wan Kenobi, and Obi-Wan Kenobi gives Luke his lightsaber, his father's lightsaber, telling him his father is dead, and now Luke needs to become a Jedi. Luke goes to meet Han, they go to rescue Leia, Luke goes to Dagobah to train, he fails a lot, he bails on his training because he's too frazzled, goes to fight Darth Vader, absolutely bombs it, loses his hand, as one does in the Star Wars, finds out that Darth Father is his Vader, makes a big stink about it, falls a bit and almost dies. But Leia comes back to save him. So they sort of train some more. Luke pops off to Dagobah again to hang out with Yoda for his last moments. Yoda takes a chill, and Luke is like, okay now. So he goes to meet up with Vader again, losing control a bit, going a little bit hog wild there for a second. But Vader turns out, hey, I'm gonna be nice now because the Emperor's kind of a dick. So I'll just toss him over this edge, killing him, and saving the day, redeeming myself, and in a very nice moment having a one-on-one, face-to-face without his mask and stuff with his son, Luke. Before that, war is over. They blow up the Death Star, they do the trench run thing, and Luke hears like Obi-Wan Kenobi in his little brain hole go, use the Force. So he does that, obviously, because when ghosts tell you to do things, you should listen. Does the thing, blow the thing up, happily ever after party. It's a story of redemption. It's a nice story of redemption, albeit a little bit clumsily handled at the start there. But it's a story of Anakin. It's a redemption story of Anakin growing up, falling to the dark side, having his children essentially redeem him, and him spending his final hours of his life doing a good thing to save essentially the galaxy. It's a good story. The new T. And then we have essentially the same thing with episode 7, Force Awakens. It's not too bad, but it's just, again, I kind of liked it. It was okay. It was like a new take on old. It was like a good way of bringing new characters in. That's fine. Then there's The Last Jedi. I'm not going to talk about it. We know that it just ruined everything. So now we're at episode 9. And I'm gonna just bring up a couple of points here that I find weird. I mean, by now they can visualize anything. They can create anything that they can think of. So visually, not a problem. It's amazing looking. It's just a shame that this is what they visualized. The first laugh I got out of the movie was the opening crawl. The first sentence of the opening crawl. The dead are talking, or something along those lines. The dead speak. Ghosts are talking now! Exclamation point. It's kind of a hilarious way to start the crawl. Basically, the opening crawl says that Palpatine is back. The Emperor is not dead, and he's making a new... So there's the First Order, which is the Empire, but not. But now there's the New Order, or it's the Final Order, I think Palpatine is calling it. It's an order... It's the Empire. They even say that they're making an empire, not the Empire. They're making an empire. So, okay, so he's back. Now, I was thinking, and this is a point that Red Letter Media pointed out a while ago, a long time ago. They said that if Palpatine is alive, because they had his laugh in the trailer, so we knew that he was going to be around. But if he was going to be alive, it would have been kind of cool to see him be like an emaciated corpse kind of thing, basically sustaining himself on nothing but the Force and being worshipped as a deity by the Ewoks. Because if you remember last time we saw the Ewoks on Endor, they essentially worshipped C-3PO as a god because they didn't know what he was, and they'd never seen anything like that before. So it would be kind of fun if they had worshipped this fallen emperor as a sort of demon god. And as Red Letter Media pointed out, that the whole planet had sort of gotten scorched by the fallen Death Star, and the forest was burned, and the Ewoks were kind of emaciated and creepy looking. Sure, I'd be fine with that. The actual explanation, though, that they use in the movie, it's Emperor Palpatine. He's alive. No, but he's dead. How? Somehow. That is it. That's literally all the explanation you get for the Emperor still being alive. It's somehow, literally a line in the movie. And I don't know if that was explained further towards the end. I did go to the bathroom once, but that's basically it. He's just alive somehow. And he's on a different planet. He's on a hidden planet. He's on a Sith planet called Exegol, which no one knows how to get to, except he's there. And also, he's built like a fleet of like thousands of Star Destroyers. I don't know how he built them. They're all underground so that they can epically rise out of the ground, which looks cool, but why are they underground? And how did he manifest them through the Force? Did he just Force create 1,000 Star Destroyers? And they're fully staffed. Where did the staff come from? He can't ferry in people to a place that no one knows about, but suddenly they're just fully staffed. Every Star Destroyer just has like 1,000 people working it. It's very confusing. I don't understand. I'm getting ahead of myself. Okay, we're introduced to Rey, which was another giggle moment for me in the theater. There was a lot of giggle moments, especially in the first hour. There was a lot of, but we meet Rey flying. She's doing like the meditation thing where she's like cross-legged in the sky, but she's doing that thing like the Avatar Last Airbender thing where like rocks are just sort of spinning around her like an atom. For some reason, it looks kind of cool, but don't know why. So she's just floating around in the air, and then she's trying to connect to all of the previous Jedi. I think she's trying to do that thing that Luke did at the trench run where Obi-Wan goes, "Use the Force." But she's trying to do that with every single Jedi ever. This is important for later. So anyway, she's floating around, and you'd think that this maybe might be like a concentration meditation thing. She's like one with the Force. She's really focused, and so she's floating. Because we did see Luke do that at the end of The Last Jedi when he was doing like the astral projection thing, and he was like really concentrating, and he was like he was floating like a good inch above the rock he was sitting on, but he was like hardcore into it. He was like really focusing. Thing is, Rey is just sort of chilling, and she's kind of getting annoyed that the Jedi aren't picking up. She can't like get to them. And then I think it's Leia that walks over and calls to her, and she's like a kid who's getting called to dinner while playing with toys, and she's like, oh, okay, fine, I'll come down. And she does this like little somersault. She's just floating down casually while talking, just does a little flip for fun and lands daintily on the ground. Fair enough. We've established that now. It's effortless, and she's not really needing a lot of concentration to just sort of fly around. Keep that in mind. It sort of feels like they wrote the movie linearly. Like they started writing with the very first scene of the movie, and then they just wrote scene by scene until they got to the end. So they didn't really have a clear idea of where the movie was headed when they started. It's like they wrote the movie, and then they were like, okay, this scene right here that we want to put in 2 hours into the movie, this scene needs to be explained because we can't just do that without any explanation. That doesn't make any sense. So we'll go back an hour and we'll put a little thing in here that explains it. And then when we get to that point, it suddenly makes more sense. Like I'll give you an example. There's a scene where they end up at like a Burning Man festival and they fall into a random cave. Okay, just back up. So they need to find a map. I guess that's just the theme of Star Wars. It's either finding maps or running out of fuel. Luckily, fuel isn't a thing in this movie at all. They find this old dilapidated ship and they just use that for the rest of the movie because fuel is ambiguous again, I guess. Even though the whole plot of Last Jedi was running out of fuel. Anyway, so they need this map to find Exegol, the Sith planet. So they need to go to a specific spot and find a specific thing. So they go to Burning Man. Like you do, but they're stormtroopers, so they have to bail. They have to escape Burning Man without getting the thing they wanted. So they leave Burning Man on little speeder bikes, and they just sort of take off for this old ship. And they go, and they go, and they go, and there's like a weird fight chase sequence. And this is one of those things that's edited really weird. The whole start of the movie is edited bizarrely. Like it's almost the whole first half hour-ish of the movie, it's edited almost like a Netflix recap. You know when the little button appears and you can like hit skip recap? It's like if you didn't do that. But it's not a recap of things we've seen. It's almost like you missed a movie between Last Jedi and this one, and that's the recap at the start of this one. There's like so many things just happening. We cut. It's almost like they run out of footage for certain scenes. Sometimes it feels like they don't even finish their sentences before there's a cut to the next shot. So much is happening, and there's so much whiplash of flying to new locations, and this person is doing that, and this person is doing... Anyway, so they're at Burning Man, and there's a chase. They escape on the speeder bikes, and there's a shot of Chewie shooting down a flying stormtrooper, and this is the one thing that felt like a mistake in the movie, like a plain editing mistake. Where Chewie is shown shooting the stormtrooper, and then the stormtrooper is shown exploding in the air. But the shot of Chewie shooting, it's literally 4 or 5 frames. Like, I'll do it now, and you'll see what I mean. This is how I remember this shot being in the movie. Like, it's so fast. It's almost like they had that shot of Chewie shooting, and then they took the stormtrooper stuff and like, nah, we don't need this bit of shooting happening. We'll just drop the stormtrooper over that. But they didn't align the shot with the previous one, so that 4 frames of Chewie shooting his gun sort of got caught in between them. It's just weird. Okay, so wacky chase ensues, and they blow things up, and they fall into a quicksand pit, and they start sinking, and they sink below the surface, and it's that beat of like, they're all died. All of the heroes died. Every single one, they're just all dead now. I mean, we know they're not. And then we get to see below the quicksand, there's like a tunnel underground, which is below the quicksand, and they sort of fall out of dirt. into this tunnel, which I don't really understand because the quicksand is like liquid-ish. I mean, it's viscous. And they sink through it, but then they fall out of sand into a tunnel, but then no quicksand is like rushing in to fill the it's like they just fall through a hole in like a ceiling. It's essentially the devil's snare scene from Harry Potter 1, where they fall through it and then they land on like more of it. But that's a plant, so it would make sense for it to like bend upwards. But sand is sand. So how can it be above but not fall? Maybe, okay, it's space sand. We don't need an explanation. It's just, it's weird. So they end up in this random tunnel that they just fell into by accident, and then they meet a creature. There's like a snake in there, and this snake is hurt. And this is what I was trying to get up to, lead up to this point of Rey finding this hurt snake, and instead of them defending themselves against this snake, she sees that it's hurt, she puts her hand on it, and she just does a little bit like, shh, and then the wounds close, like Wolverine style. And this is something that also happens in The Mandalorian, which I'll talk about more later. But that whole thing of healing the cave snake is just a setup to justify a later scene of her healing Kylo Ren. When they have a fight, and she stabs him with a lightsaber through his torso somewhere, and she falls down and she's like, oh, he's gonna die now. But then she just puts her hand on him and he's fine again. And I know that that's how you do movie. You set things up and then you have a payoff. It just feels like there's too many shoehorned things in that just don't feel like they happened naturally. I feel like I would almost be more okay with her just healing him out of nowhere rather than having this random snake show up. But if that happened, I would probably be pointing that out instead. There are, however, a lot of things that Rey can just do. I like Rey. I like Rey as a character. I think that her personality is fun. I think that Daisy Ridley plays her well. I like the sort of like optimistic go get 'em up and at 'em attitude that she has. I like her personality. I like her style. It's just weird when she can just do stuff. Like, Luke could barely lift a rock, and then when they needed the ship back, he totally failed and Yoda had to bail him out. Like, he sucked for most of the movies. And she can lift stuff. Now she can fly and she can heal people, which we've never seen before happen in the Star Wars, I think. And she can do the mind trick now that Obi-Wan was the one to do. Obi-Wan was like the master, and he had a whole life of being a Jedi master behind him, and he could do like these are not the droids you're looking for. But she can just do that now, I guess. Sure. And there's a weird sequence where she does training now? Well, she runs in the forest, and then she gets a little bit upset because she has a memory of Kylo Ren, so she falls over. That's like movie 1 or movie 2. You can't have her do all this shit, and then she does a little training montage and fails. It's like, well, okay, she fell over now, but we've seen her just succeed in we've seen her beat Kylo Ren, and we've seen her use the Force, and we've seen her do all these things for 3 movies now, and now she's doing a little bit of training. It's not gonna cut it. I feel like that's just sort of shoved in there to shut people up. It's like, she's doing training now. You can't complain anymore. I don't know why they keep pinning her against Kylo Ren, because we've seen her beat his ass in every movie. Like, Luke goes from like failing and sucking and losing his hand and basically almost dying unless Leia had come back to save him. And Rey goes from being awesome and winning to being awesome and winning. There's just not a lot of character arc there. But there's so many like plot points like that where thing is introduced and then 2 scenes later, thing is resolved. Like in the desert at Burning Man, there's a ship with stormtroopers, they capture Chewbacca and they take off, and Rey sort of stops them in midair with the Force, and she just like pulls the ship back down, and then she shoots lightning at them, and the whole ship blows up. And everyone thinks that she's just murdered Chewbacca. She just blew up the whole ship with Chewbacca in it, and they don't really seem to care. Like, no one is upset. No one is like, what the hell, Rey? How did you shot lightning, first of all. Second, you blew up Chewbacca. They're just sort of like, nah, dang it. He was in there. All right, well, come on, we gotta go. Ship's taking off. No one doubts her. No one turns on her. No one has second thoughts about Rey. She's just like, whoops. And they're like, oh, you. Which is kind of weird. They find this dagger in this cave underneath Burning Man next to this snake. They find a dagger that has Sith hieroglyphs on it, and only C-3PO can read them. But he's not allowed to translate them? There's some factory block that prohibits him from translating these runes. So he can read them, and he knows them, he understands them, he just cannot translate them. So they take 3PO to this new Yoda. I mean, we have a Yoda in we have Yoda, and then there's orange Yoda, and now there's tiny Yoda. There's like another little thing that's talking funny. So they take 3PO to this tiny Yoda, Babu Freak, and it turns out they have to wipe his memory to get access to this Sith transcript thing. So they have to essentially clear him out. They have to essentially kill 3PO. They have to remove his memories of they have to factory reset him. And this is where we get that shot of 3PO and I think Poe and Rey. Don't remember if Finn is there. I don't remember if Finn is in most of the movie. He doesn't really do anything other than shout, Rey! For most of it. But anyway, they're there. R2 is not there. Luke is obviously not there. Leia is not there. Han is not. None of the original cast is there. Yet we have that scene with 3PO where he does the, I'm taking one last look, sir, at my friends. Your friends aren't there, dude. Memory's going already. So they wipe his memory. He translates the thing and they get the thing they needed, but factory reset has happened. 3PO is gone. He's just a robot now. Essentially, they're doing the ending of WALL-E. But the ending of WALL-E is an emotional, sad thing because essentially he's dead. He's gone. But the 3PO thing, they play it off as a joke for the most part. They just sort of do like the, oh, 3PO, you bumbling buffoon. It's like a grandparent who's like losing some memory due to age, but the family is so used to it so that they're like, oh, grandpa, you don't remember? You silly, come along here. We're gonna do this now. I die. You're a little bit confused, grandpa, but it's gonna be fine. They're kind of doing that with 3PO, but like instantly, like right away. We're just in that mode of, oh, 3PO, you don't remember, do you? You. Which kind of takes away a lot of the impact of his sacrifice, because he's been around. He was made by Anakin. He was around for the whole war. And now he's just gone? And it's, isn't that silly? No. No, it isn't. Luckily, though, it turns out R2 just has a backup of his memory. So when they go back and meet R2, R2 is like, a beep boop. 3PO goes, you want to stick what? In where? Wah, wah. And then he gets his memory back. But it's like a little bit reset. So it's like there's still some like, we still know that it wasn't perfect, but it's not like he's missing much because he's like, oh, R2, today I'm going on my first mission with Rey. It's like, first of all, why would you say that? Second of all, why would you, 3PO, be excited about going on a mission with Rey when you are afraid of everything? And third, what was the point of the sacrifice? It's just resolved. Fine, don't even worry about it. Chewie being blown up? It's fine. He'll show up like 2 scenes later. They open a door. Oh, he wasn't on the shit. Oh shit, we're stuck on this planet and we can't get anywhere because we need to pass security and there's like Empire fleets all around. Wait a minute. Poe, here's your ex-girlfriend. She hates you now, but she has this magical coin. That was a weird one, wasn't it? Like they introduced this lady who was apparently with Poe in the past and she hates him now because he's a piece of shit, I guess. But she has this magical coin that she's been saving up her whole life to get because it lets you just bypass any security. And she's like all about this coin. Like this is her thing. This is the thing that's gonna get her off of this rock and just sort out her life. And then she gives it away to someone she just hated like a minute ago. Which is convenient. There's like a droid that said, hello. I don't remember why. There's also a lot of fun undoing of The Last Jedi, like very obvious, deliberate undoing of The Last Jedi, where it's like, oh, remember Rey's parents? Rey's parents were nobodies? Turns out her grandfather, her grandpa, Palpatine, yo. Hey, why don't we do that Holdo maneuver? You know, light hyper jump through like a bunch of ships and it just blows everything up? The Holdo maneuver? No way, that's 1 in a million. Oh, remember Snoke? You know where Snoke came from? Palpatine just made him. He just made him made him in a tank. He just has a Snoke soup in his house. There's like 2 or 3 Snokes floating around in a tank. He just makes them. When he's bored, just makes a Snoke. Build a Snoke, mess up his face a little bit. Gotta look creepy. Antagonist, bring out another Snoke. This one died. Sorry, can I get another Snoke in here? Thank you. Rey goes to Luke's island and she burns her ship. And she tosses the lightsaber into the fire because she wants to exile herself now. She saw like a vision of herself like Luke did. She saw like, this is what you'd look like if you go bad. If you turn to the dark side, you'll have this Swiss Army knife lightsaber that like folds out for some reason instead of just being out like Darth Maul had. It sort of folds because it looks cool in the trailer. So she goes to the island to exile herself. It doesn't take a lot to convince her. And she burns her ship, which is Kylo's ship that she stole because they were at the Kylo boat. They were at the Kylo ship, and she took his ship, flew to the island, burns it up, and she throws the lightsaber. Essentially, we're getting the same shot from the beginning of Last Jedi, where Rey hands the lightsaber to Luke, and he throws it over his shoulder. But this time, Rey is throwing the lightsaber, and Luke's Force ghost shows up and catches it in midair. He's like in the fire. There's like a wall of fire and his hand comes out and catches the lightsaber. He catches the lightsaber and he steps out of the fire and he's like, what the hell are you doing, kid? And he hands it back to her. Now, instantly my question is, if a Force ghost can hold a physical object, not a Force lightsaber, but a real ass functional lightsaber, he can hold it. Why can't he just fight? What's there to say that we can't just have Force ghosts sort of fighting it out? They can't get hit. They can't die again. If you hit them, this stuff, I would assume, just goes through them, right? So I feel like that's a little bit of a plot hole. Maybe it requires a lot of effort and concentration. You could just have a throwaway line in the movie, like when he's talking to Rey, and just go like, here, kid, I wish I could do more, but it takes a lot of concentration to even just manifest. And holding physical objects, no easy feat. Can't do it for much longer. Please take the lightsaber. I mean, maybe not that stupid, but you could do something. So that's confusing. And then, and Rey and Finn go to the Death Star, the crashed remains of the Death Star, because the dagger that they found in the random cave tells them where to go. And she does like that, like the Goonies thing, where they hold, like, I think in the Goonies, is it like a coin or a medallion that lines up with like a mountain range? And here it's like the side of the dagger, like the blade of the dagger. It's like a key. Like, it's like bumpy, you know? And she holds it up and it like lines up with the coastline of where the Death Star is, like the ruins of the Death Star. Meaning that, luckily, I guess the Force told her where to go, but she just happens to stand in the exact spot on this coastline to line this dagger up with the outline of the fallen Death Star. Secondly, this ancient Sith dagger must have been made after the Death Star crashed, because it lines up with the Death Star ruin, the wreckage, and you can't make an outline of a wreckage that hasn't happened yet, unless the Force, I guess, told the blade maker what to do for like the design of the blade. I don't know, I don't get it. It's kind of weird. So they gotta go to the Death Star, and the Death Star is like way out in the ocean, right? And the ocean is like super stormy. There's like giant ass waves. So the native girl, there's like another girl there who's like a a nomad type of person. And she's like, there's no way. We can't go there now. We have to wait for the storm to pass. But Rey goes anyway, and she makes it alone, just fine. I guess the Force. But then there's the girl and Finn. They also just go because Rey went. So they're like, we gotta go after Rey. And they also just go, and there's just no problems at all. So what was the danger? And then we have this weird sequence. Remember how I said at the start that Rey can just fly seemingly effortlessly? She can just do that. We have this whole sequence of Rey climbing the wreckage to get to the specific point that the dagger prophesized. And we have this like dramatic like sequence of her like, oh, she's almost falling off, and oh, she's gotta like jump and like climb and like do the things she did at the the start of Force Awakens, where she's like scavenging for parts. She's doing that, and hold on a minute. Couldn't she just fly? It kind of makes sense for Leia to do that because they were in space and there's no gravity. She just has to drift forward. But Rey was flying on a planet. And even if she's climbing, maybe she can't like sustainably fly. Maybe she can just float. Couldn't she just float if she fell? Like, is there any danger? Is there any risk? Like, what's the problem? If she falls, she can just float. Right? Okay, there's a lot of weird stuff. I know I'm jumping all around. These are just like points that I thought about during watching the movie. It's been like a week since I saw the movie. I wanted to finish The Mandalorian before I made a video about it, but I digress. So when they're at Exegol and they do the whole Emperor thing and they essentially defeat the Emperor is like, every single Sith ever is inside me, and that's why I'm super powerful, and if I die, all of that shit's gonna go into you, Rey, he says, verbatim. And then she's like, well, all of the Jedi are in me, and she does that thing again where she's like, hear me, listen to me, say my name, or whatever she says, I don't remember exactly. But she's like, yo, sup, you up, Jedi? And they're all like, yeah, what's up, Rey? You got this. Come on, Rey, you can do it. And you hear like the voices of like Ewan McGregor, and I'm assuming Luke and Leia, like all of the Jedi, like Yoda is in there. I think Mace Windu showed up. There's a bunch of Jedi voices. Essentially all of the Jedis of the past are just like, you go, girl. So she does go, girl. And they do kill the Emperor. Like Kylo shows up and they help each other. So they kill him, I guess. Who knows? No one's ever really gone. Kylo falls off of a cliff. So Rey is all alone, and she does it, but she dies. And then Kylo climbs out of the cliff, and he makes her alive again with this life magic that is a thing now. This is the scene where I felt like this whole thing is an SNL sketch, or like it's like a joke, because she's they're like, it's like two of them next to each other on the screen. It's like sideways shot, and they're like sitting next to each other. She's like laying down because she's dead, and he like makes her alive again. She sits up, they kiss, and then he falls over dead. And for some reason she doesn't do the life thing again, but I felt like this is such a perfect moment for her to do the life thing, and then he sits back up and they kiss, and then she falls dead and he does the life thing, sit back up, kiss, and they go back and forth and just sort of like do the life thing and res each other and die. And they get like visibly more and more annoyed with the other because both of them want to have the last word, kind of like in Avengers, like that. No, I'm the one who's gonna. No, I'm gonna kiss you and then I'm gonna die. Mwah. No, I'm the. Like that would be kind of hilarious. It was basically a setup for that, but without the punchline. 3 more points. First of all, going back a bit, the Emperor's entire fleet is on Exegol, like 1,000 ship, and they can only leave the planet, I guess because the planet is hidden, and there's a bunch of red space juice outside of the planet, and that's dangerous. So you need a specific route to get through, and that specific route is transmitted from a tower. So they take down this tower, and that means that the whole fleet is, for some reason, stranded on the planet. Like they can't leave the planet without this one specific signal. So they move the signal to another ship, and then the good guys take down that ship. And now the bad guys are stranded again. And then that Independence Day thing happens where suddenly we just get a bunch of shots from around the galaxy of rebels everywhere sort of taking down Star Destroyers. And I'm like, wait, was that supposed to be some sort of mothership deal? And all of these other Star Destroyers that are already out in the galaxy, they're not part of the Emperor's fleet. They're just Imperial ships. Why are they suddenly getting all destroyed? What happened to them to suddenly make them super destroyable? And why couldn't just every ship in the Emperor's fleet have a map? Like, why couldn't they just have the signal? Why couldn't he just give every ship a copy of the way out? Because apparently it's not that hard. Like, Rey flew there, and then she broadcast her signal out. And then all of the rebels showed up. Like, every single rebel ship in the entire galaxy just flew there casually and just started fighting. So if they can do it with just like this ping from the inside, why couldn't someone on the outside just go like, yo, it's this way? I don't get why that was a thing. Did I miss something there? Please help me understand. And then the movie ends with Rey going to the Skywalker ranch, like Luke's house, the where he lived at the very, very beginning with his aunt and uncle, the house in the desert. She goes there and she puts the two lightsabers, Luke and Leia's lightsaber, which is a thing now. She got that a little bit earlier. She puts those in like a little bundle and she buries them next to the house. And then Luke's and Leia's a Force ghost, because she's a Force ghost now as well, I think. It's hard to know. Han Solo shows up for a second to have a chat with Kylo, but Han isn't a Force ghost. He's like a memory ghost, I think. But Leia shows up and she has like a blue glow, which Han didn't have, and Luke is there. So I'm assuming she's a Force ghost. I thought it was like a Jedi Master thing to become like Qui-Gon Jinn was the first ever to become a Force ghost. So it's not like it's an established thing you just do, but I guess they just sort of hooked up in death. Qui-Gon was just hanging around in the Force and be like, I have a certain set of skills. And then Yoda and Obi-Wan and Luke and Leia showed up and be like, oh, that's how you do it? Oh, okay. So I guess they can just show up now. Fine. That's not the thing I have an issue with. The thing that's kind of weird to me is that there's like an old lady that comes by and she's like, who are you? No one's been here for billions of years. And Rey is there and she's like, oh, I'm Rey. Rey Skywalker. Except she isn't, though. She's Rey Palpatine. Which I think sends kind of a weird message. Because it would have made sense if she was Rey Palpatine. Well, she is, but if she said that, and the message of the movie would have been, it doesn't matter where you come from or what your history is, you are your actions, you are who you are. You decide your own fate, no matter what your name is or your heritage is. Which would have been a good message. But that's not it. That doesn't become the message. Because she says she's Rey Skywalker. So now the message becomes, don't be who you are, hide your true origin, hide who you are, and just take someone else's legacy. Don't embrace your past. Don't embrace who you are. Just take someone else's something. Just take something and attach it to yourself, and you'll be fine. It's a good message, Disney. And also, what the hell? Finn, okay, so throughout the whole movie, Finn has been shouting that he wants to tell Rey something. When they were sinking in the quicksand, they made a big stink about it. They fell down. He didn't say what the thing was, and then Poe was like, Finn, you wanted to tell, what are you gonna say, Finn? What? Hey, come on, Finn. What are you gonna tell her? And it's like, sort of, I guess, implied that it was like a romance thing. Like maybe he was gonna say, Rey, I've always liked you. I don't know. And then they bring that back up at the end of the movie. Like, Rey, I need to tell you something. And then they end the movie. And he never does. And someone tweeted at John Boyega asking if he was gonna, like, confess love. If this was a, I love you, Rey, I've always loved you. I wanted to tell you before the movie was over, but then I didn't. But that was not it. That was, according to the actor who plays Finn, that was not what he was gonna say. I saw another article bringing up that J.J. Abrams himself had said they purposefully left it ambiguous, but the thing that he was gonna say is that he's force sensitive, that he has Jedi powers as well, which is hinted at throughout the movie. Finn can sort of sense things and do things with just his gut feeling, and it sort of works out. I couldn't find a source for this, so I don't know if that's true. This was just an article that I read, but this article that I read said that J.J. Abrams said that that was the thing that Finn was supposed to say. They just purposefully left it ambiguous. Or they just sort of forgot, and then they didn't have a real conclusion to that storyline. But anyway, the movie's over now. The end. I've been recording this for an hour and 14 minutes. I don't know how long this is going to be. I was going to talk about The Mandalorian as well. Well, I mainly just want to say that it wasn't all bad. Like, it's not the worst movie I've ever seen. I think it's the most boring Star Wars movie, maybe? I feel like a third of it was like, okay. A third of it was like, yeah, I get it. And a third of it was like, is it over yet? What's the runtime? So I wouldn't recommend it unless you really want to see the ending to the saga, which is the only reason I saw it. I guess morbid curiosity, you could call it. But The Mandalorian. I just finished The Mandalorian last night. Just real quick, want to say it's awesome. It had a bit of a dip. It's a little bit of a weird show. It's episodic in terms of adventures, but it's got a story arc. It's a season-long story arc. The thing I think the most about The Mandalorian is that it takes its time. It doesn't rush. Video game feely is a term that I've heard thrown around the Rise of the Skywalker, and I agree. It feels like a video game in terms of pacing. There's always action happening. The player mustn't get bored, so we gotta get to the next action bit and just throw more stuff at the screen. The Mandalorian is like chill. It's like a character doing his thing. Sometimes there's action. Sometimes it's just a pensive little moment where Mando is just kind of thinking about his life, or feeling one way or another, or trying not to feel one way or another. The Mandalorian as a show, I think, has a really, really, really strong start. It dips a little bit in the middle, especially episode 4 and 5. Episode 5, I think, is the worst. It's not bad, but it is the worst, because it's essentially fan service. The episode, it feels like a fan film. They even have the exact same shot where Han sits at the start of A New Hope. They have the exact same shot in the cantina at Mos Eisley. The exact same framing. Everything is the same. It's just another character there. But sitting in the exact same way, in the same booth, in the same cantina, there's so many bits like that where it's like, this is just a thing from Star Wars, but now it's in Star Wars again. Episode 6 was a bit weird because it was full of comedians. I think Bill Burr was in there. There's another comedian as well that I don't remember the name of. When I first saw episode 6 and they go to this space prison to just bail out a dude and things go awry, I was like, man, that was a pointless episode. Nothing progressed, nothing happened. And then instantly, like a second later, I was like, wait, but I still enjoyed it. Oh no, that was a cool episode. So I kind of liked the episodic, but with a season-wide arc storyline going. The theme song is amazing. Visually, it's just shot fantastically well. The effects, you can tell that it's got a smaller budget than a blockbuster movie, but it doesn't detract. It doesn't make the show worse. Sometimes I even like it more because it feels like it's holding back a bit. It's not throwing everything at the screen because it can. I don't know if it's a budgetary thing or if it's a writing thing. There's not just shit happening all the time. They know where to spend their budget, and it's well spent. The only complaint I'll say visually is with the Yoda, Baby Yoda animatronic thing. It looks fantastic, except for the blinking. It's a pet peeve of mine with animatronics. It's not just the fault of the Mandalorian. It's a very common thing in animatronics, but when you blink with an animatronic, a lot of the time you get this. Where it's not really blinking. It's like doing like that squint thing because they can't get the full articulation of the eyelids. So they do that like, yeah, I'm trying to blink, but I'm a puppet, so I can't. Baby Yoda does that throughout the show, and it's kind of bugging me, and now it's probably gonna bug you too. I'm sorry. But man, the last episode was fantastic. IG-88 came back strong, kicking ass, loved it. Taika Waititi, baller job. And they had the most adorable conversation between two stormtroopers in episode 8, where they just sort of, you got to focus on the stormtroopers for a bit. You got to see them sort of just wait for orders, and they just hung out and like talking shit and just being normal people. There was a fantastic shot of them pulling out their little pea shooters, their little blasters, and they were doing some target practice on like a thing in the desert just to pass time, but they kept missing. And then the dude was like, "What the? But it's like garbage," and just put it away again. So I like that they're a little bit self-aware and poking fun at that because it was adorable, and I rewatched that moment several times because it's just cute. It was just a nice little wholesome like stormtroopers are people too moment, and I loved it. They do some tie-ins in The Mandalorian, which is kind of fun if you pick up on them. There's a mention of Life Day, which I find the most hilarious because Life Day is the only thing in the canon, as far as I'm aware, it's the only ever acknowledgement of the Star Wars holiday special. This was my reaction. A couple of the mentions are kind of wonky, though. They mention Gungans at one point, and they do the whole like, "Misa gonna die," like that talk. Like, would you know about Gungans? Where are you from? Maybe you followed politics. Jar Jar was a senator? Oh, and there's like a scene where they go like, "What are you, a Canto Bite cashier or something?" Like, oh, cause Canto Bite was in The Last Jedi. Yeah, I get it. It feels a little bit limiting because, like, yeah, there are stormtroopers and Mandalorians, which are in Star Wars. IG-88 is in Star Wars. But why now the Canto Bite has never been... It's only now mentioned after The Last Jedi. It's never been mentioned ever before The Last Jedi, obviously, because it was made for The Last Jedi. So stuff like that feels a little ham-fisted. So all in all, Mandalorian, great show with a bit of a dip in the middle, but fantastic. Well worth watching if you can. It is really tricky to do so, but it's worth it. I loved it, and if this is the way that Star Wars is going in the future past this whole Skywalker saga, I am still curious. I feel like The Mandalorian has ignited a new hope. I'm sorry. Okay, that was it. I'm not gonna talk anymore. It's been an hour and 23 minutes. That's it. I'm gonna end the video here. I just wanted to get some thoughts out in a ranty form about Star Wars in general. Episode 9 bad, Mandalorian good. That's it. Bye.